Welcome to the Elevate Your Brand podcast, where we help online coaches learn how to elevate their brand, become the experts in their industries so they can bring in more clients and create a life they want. I am your host, Chris Anderson. And if you want to make a difference in the lives of others, share this episode, go over to Apple Podcasts and follow us there to leave a positive rating and review. And together we can leave a bigger positive mark on the world. Today we have Louis Schenk on the show today, and he is the CEO and founder of Boost Media Agency. So Louis, welcome to Elevate Your Brand.
Chris, thank you so much for having me, man. I'm excited to dive into it.
Absolutely. So for those who can't see the video right now, Louis has the iconic Michael Jordan picture on the back wall there of his, taking flight slam dunk from the free throw line. So Louis, it's safe to say you're into sports, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell?
Yeah. So, kind of starting there because, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, and you might have attested to this, are athletes or were athletes at some point or had some sort of competitive nature. Do you find that to be true with, the clients you work with and just those you interact with?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's not universal to all the clients we work with, but, like they say, business is war, right? Like, take it how you want. It's open to interpretation, but at the end of the day, it's like you are going to war every day, right? You're competing with a million other people who are trying to take your customers and beat you. And so, I am naturally very competitive. And so, when there's something on the line, it's like I really hate losing. And so it was actually interesting. I was chatting with my mentor about it a while ago, and he asked everyone in this group we're a part of, he's like, are you the type of person that loves to win or hates to lose? Right. And so everyone kind of answered. And one of the most common traits among really successful people is that they hate to lose, not that they love to win, right? So it's like moving away from that pain. So I think having a background in, playing sports at a pretty high level really kind of gives me that competitive drive and hunger and, motivation, if you will, to kind of not beat others, but beat others.
Yeah. And you mentioned that your sport career, golf, right, was your thing. Played, we discussed, JUCO for those junior college and then D1 here in the States. Because if you can't tell, Louis has a little bit of an accent to us listening in the States from Australia. So what was it like coming over here and playing golf? Like compared to Australia, is the level different, like the competitiveness and things like that?
It's a way bigger pond,
okay.
In the US, and we don't have college golf. I think one of the greatest strengths of you guys as a country in one aspect is the fact you have such a great, sporting community in the schools, right? It's the D1 colleges all just revolve around the sport, and it's like incredible. Australia has, they have a couple of teams, but it's not anywhere near that level. So a lot of golfers, well, not just golfers, but athletes will look to go to America to kind of, get their foot in a bigger door, more opportunity. So it was a scary experience. Honestly, the first day I got there, I arrived in Wichita, Kansas, right? Growing up in a city, going into Wichita, and then we're driving to the school, and for the whole hour drive, we're just driving through these cornfields and it's just wispy brown grass. And I'm literally sitting there. My dad was next to me, and he's like, I looked at him, I was like, man, what am I gotten myself into? Then obviously you get to the town, you see the school, you're like, okay, there's actually people that live here. That's a good sign, right? Because I thought I was going into, some desolate place, but that experience of getting that far out of my comfort zone was, I was very shy, introverted, and through a lot of experiences, that was the biggest step for me in terms of personal growth in my life, I would say.
That's really cool to do that, take that step and, move to another country for schooling and, and golf, especially so I like golf. I'm not good at golf. I'd say I'm probably average or maybe probably a little below average if we're being honest. But it's such a, golf is just, it's you versus you, literally. I mean, for the most part, yes, you can compete against other people, but when you're out there, really, it's really just you against yourself. And I think in entrepreneurship, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the pro in my eyes with golf, but you have to, battle that inner voice, that mind, what's going on in your head, because if you just, hook that ball, out into the rough or, out of bounds for me, that happens quite a bit, but you have to get back on mentally. Like you have to, that has to be gone, and it has to be the next thing to improve and move forward, right? And that's kind of like in the game of entrepreneurship as well.
Correct. They're both games that are won and lost in the mind, right?
Mm,
Like, you can in golf, right? You can hit the exact shot in practice 100 times. Then there's all this pressure on you, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, don't hook it. Oh, this out of bounds there, and your mind just starts racing. So it is a true talent and skill to be able to control your mind and slow things down in those pressure moments. Like I don't think I've ever felt the pressure in business that I did in golf. That being said, as you reach, newer heights and higher levels, of course, there'll be more pressure coming on. But yeah, like it truly is a game of, battling your inner demons and being able
yeah.
to control them and then pushing forward.
It's crazy. Yeah. And it's so crazy that, like you mentioned, like as you grow on entrepreneurship, like starting out, it's a whole, certain way of things you got about it. I mean, you've got to improve yourself and, figure all that out, figure out how to grow the business. But then as you're going, it's, okay, what are my true like skills? Where am I really good at? What can I outsource, delegate, and things of that nature? And yeah, like you said, as you grow and as you continue to build, the challenges become different, and you have to face new things. So it's always a new competition almost as we grow. And I think it's interesting too with what you do with Boost Media, helping businesses and brands, grow through PR, through publications and things of that nature. Um, not many people really think about that aspect. Why did you, kind of lean into that as a business?
Yeah, I would say I fell into it, to be honest. So I have an events company as well that I started pre-pandemic, and then obviously pandemic hits, not many face-to-face events are being run. So yeah, basically had to make some changes very quickly. And one of my good friends who he lived in Canada for 6 years, we grew up in the same town. We stayed connected the whole time, which was very fortunate because I think I was the only person in our whole friend group to keep in contact with him. And anyway, he ended up doing some, getting into business and sales and all this stuff. And so as he was kind of growing at the time, he was building sales teams. So basically, they would approach companies, build sales teams for them, etc. He had an opportunity at a PR company. He's like, dude, I think this would be a great opportunity for you to do. Like it'll only be a few hours a day. You're just doing like an SDR type role, just, basically getting them more clients. And yeah, that's how I fell into it. But
Cool.
then when I learned about the business, I was like, wow, this is so cool because the power of getting someone into imagine the biggest publication in Indiana, right? And you're on the front page of it. You show that to your friend, you show it to the family, like the feeling that you get internally from that, and then all the benefits you can have in business. It's like, it was incredible for me to see. And I was like, man, I want to learn everything about this. And yeah, I pretty much learned how the guy ran his whole business, got in touch with a bunch of people that he knew. And then, yeah, pretty much just started my own thing because I didn't want to work for him, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that's another thing too, like that I found with myself. Like I don't like being told what to do. Like
yeah.
I like to help people and I like to, do positive things, but I just, and especially when people tell you like, oh yeah, good luck, you can't do that or something like that, that really lights a fire under me too. I think kind of going back to what you say, don't like to lose. But so, so you step out, you start Boost Media. What challenges did you face, if you're willing to share any that you had to overcome maybe at the beginning, first maybe couple years, that might be beneficial for the audience to hear?
Yeah, I think like pretty much every business owner in the first few years, we're our own biggest, obstacle, right? It's just about getting out of our own way and letting things happen, right?
Yeah.
Like I think one of the biggest things is just hiring the right people. Like it, it's very cliche, like, you got to find talent, etc. But like when you hire someone good, you really know, right? And it can be scary to make that hire where it's like, you're spending X amount of money on this person. Is it going to be worth it? Yeah, so I think definitely the challenges has been hiring the right people, but yeah, I almost think trying to grow it too fast as well and just hiring so many people that it just caused so much chaos. And it's like I was micromanaging 10 different people on a day-to-day basis. Hey, how do I reply to this? Hey, what? And so like I realized that when you actually get good people, you don't need that many of them. Like I was like, I really thought about it. I was like, okay, I'm going to step out of the frame here and be like, hey, what is working right now? It's like, well, these three people are literally contributing nothing. Like if I just completely eliminated them, nothing's going to change, right? Revenue's not going to drop. Clients aren't going to get worse results. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to cut them. And so one person, like I had one guy who literally did more output and more work than three people combined. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely think getting the right people on your team and just like constantly innovating upon like your services and offerings, right? Like
Mm.
people are always going to have, new problems that you can kind of solve. So just like taking the time to actually like ask them, like, what else are you struggling with? Is there anything that we can kind of support you on? And yeah, just building connection and relationship with the clients there.
Yeah, I think that's huge. The scaling at the right speed kind of thing and the right, width and depth. And I heard the other day, I can't remember who said it, but they said you want to try to stay as lean as possible.
Mm-hmm.
In the athlete sense of things, being toned and lean is great, but in business too, being as
Mm-hmm.
lean as you can. I mean, you think of some of these like huge companies, or even huge brands or individuals, Gary V, things of those nature. Like they don't have hundreds and probably don't even have 20 employees. I would say
Mm-hmm.
probably fewer than that. Like just staying really lean, to be able to, and you can still grow with that. I think that's a crucial point you just made that I think people need to understand, because I think they look at these bigger things and they kind of get the, oh, like I want to be just like that, and so they want to scale and bring in all these people so fast, or invest in certain things too fast. And I think we really, like you said, step out of frame, get it
Mm-hmm.
out of our own way and what we think is going to be best, and kind of really break it down from the outside. So I appreciate you sharing that. And with that, so they are scaling. They maybe got a really great MVP on their team right now, growing. Where does the PR piece really fit in well for entrepreneurs and businesses to utilize?
Yeah, so the way I like to look at it, you already mentioned him before, but Gary V,
Mm-hmm.
Alex Hormozy,
Yeah.
Grant Cardone, all these people who you just see at the top of their spaces, obviously they've done, really big things, which gives them a lot of brand and brand equity. But at the same time, it's like the way I look at it is like, how can we blueprint what these people are doing and then bring that to, small to medium businesses that might be in the 1 to 30 employee range? Because
Yeah.
most business owners, unless they, win some kind of award or go and actively try and get it themselves, they don't get a lot of attention,
Right.
right? There'll be a lot of huge companies that you would literally never have heard of because they've just never like maybe hired a team or like hired an agency to do it for them, or they've never actually reached out themselves. So what I found is there's so many of these businesses that are in like the 3 to 5, 6 year kind of age that have never had any kind of media exposure. They've got great products, great service, great customers, and one of the most common things I hear is like, man, like I've been thinking about PR for a while, but I just didn't know how to do it or how to go about it. So it's one of those things like, about building the brand and really establishing, having more third party credibility, right? So
Mm.
like, obviously people don't care what we say about ourselves. Like
Yeah.
every single marketer nowadays puts 7-figure, 8-figure in their bio. And like, honestly, probably half of them are lying, right?
Right.
Like just to be straight up honest. And so
Yeah.
one of the things is like, what are other people saying about them, right? If they have a ton of case studies and testimonials and, they've been reached out to by some big podcasts or they've been, in a
Mm-hmm.
publication like Inc. or Forbes magazine, then, that's when people actually go, okay, cool. This person is really, a trustworthy individual. So it's a double-edged sword though, because you have to be careful, right? You can't just go ahead and like help someone who doesn't have a business or is like ripping people off do these things because, it's scary how powerful it can be,
Yeah.
right? Like, so yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword in that regard. But I think ultimately what we like really want to do and what we help people with is just building personal brands that
Mm.
grow the business for them. Because the reality is the biggest lead generator in a small business of like 1 to 20 people is the founder,
Yeah.
right? Like they're getting on the phones, they're sending the emails, they're connecting on LinkedIn, whatever that may be. And so when you get reached out to by someone, it takes not a lot of time to see, well, do I like this person? Would I want to work with this person? And I never go on Facebook, and probably an hour before this, I was like, oh yeah, I got a bit of time. Like before this interview, I'll jump on Facebook. And I was going through all these friend requests and all these people in business, and I literally deleted 80% of them because I looked at them. I'm like, I wouldn't, I couldn't probably sign you as a client, right? And
Right.
like they're trying to sell you stuff. So point being, the brand is really the foundation of everything else.
Yeah. So what are some things people can do, like you said early on in the journey, to build that powerful personal brand, since they're like, the CEO, the founder, they're the main image of it so far? What are some things that you've seen work for good personal brands to get out there?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it really comes down to positioning. And
Mm,
like I said, first impression. So there's ways that, as a small business owner or someone starting out, you can do this really effectively, right? Like one, I would just start investing in like the content and the brand. So
mm,
getting, I think like this is a very underrated thing and it sounds so simple, but just having some professional photos taken will make the biggest difference you've ever seen. Because
yeah.
if you're the face there and like you see someone's profile picture and they're taking yourself in the bathroom, like, I mean, come on, like no one's going to do business with you. Let's be honest. So
Right.
having that image is very important. So yeah, one, investing in your brand in terms of the content, even videos, like getting on video is a really powerful way to build trust because that they can hear you speak, they can get a feel for your tone of voice, they kind of can understand you. So
Yeah.
on top of that as well, obviously, people can start to reach out to podcasts and start to share their story and message and just, yeah, post content that's authentic to you. Don't try and say, oh yeah, like, I you see people all the time that they help people get to seven figures and they've never done it themselves.
Right.
So just share your experiences of things that you're an expert in, right? Like I'm going to
Hmm.
take this from Alex Hormozy here and say you're an expert in your own life, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were able to scale the business to 100,000, create content around how I scaled my business to 100,000, not
Yes.
how I help people get to a million because you haven't done it yourself. So
Yep.
just staying really true and credible to things you can do and that you have done. And yeah, just not copying everyone else because if you just sound like everyone else, like you're never going to resonate with anyone.
Yeah. And that's a great point. Yeah. Just really sticking to what you're really good at and what you've done. And I think a lot of people compare themselves like, oh, if I say I've only, you know, built a business that's, high five figures, people are going to look at that and look at it like it's a bad thing. Like, no, like lean into that. That's huge because not many people have, started from nothing to getting to that point even. So like you said, leaning into what you've done well, because you can always continue. Like once you do hit six figures, then you can say that and continue to expand on it.
Yeah. And that's where opportunity meets preparation, right? Like,
Mm,
who knows, like in the near future, you might be doing consulting for, people, you know, in that situation you were trying to help them with before. And it might just happen in a much more congruent fashion, right? Where you feel
yeah.
like, okay, I can really help this person. Like I've had all these ideas like, yeah, I should do this. I'm just like, it's probably not the right time yet. It's like,
Hmm.
I want to get really, 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 really good and then be like, okay, I'm going to start helping someone with like this new problem, right?
Yep.
Before just, saying, hey, I'm like, going to coach you to seven figures, going to coach you to eight figures or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep. 100%. I agree with that completely. Like just, yeah, focusing on one thing. I have a lot of ideas too. And I think a lot of people probably can attest to that they have the same thing, but focus on what you're good at, growing that, and then being able to expand later down the road. So with that, I know we touched on, the PR and why it's important, but when I think PR, publications, personal public relations, things like that, I think of written articles, online, articles. Is that the only way to get PR, or are there other forms or avenues that you guys direct people into?
Yeah. So just to kind of take a step back and just define PR. So
Yeah.
PR, like public relations, is literally just like your image to the public, right? So like that comes in many forms, right? Like this podcast. So like part of what we do for our clients is get them onto the right podcast in front of the right audience because they're just building their brand to the public, getting known by more people,
Mm,
then creating the content from that to then, share with their audiences, reach new audiences through that too. So it's constantly about building that image. So, TV, there's like newspapers, but everything is mostly like online nowadays. So our biggest two channels that we focus on is, yeah, like the online media and publications, and then obviously podcasts too. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the main, I think, things that people can focus on too.
cool. So when people get on these things, like get on the podcast, get on or get into the articles, I guess let's focus on the articles real quick. I have multiple questions flying in there, but do they actually write the articles themselves and send it in, or do the like Forbes and all that? Do they write the article on the person, or is it a mix?
Yeah, so the clients never write their
Okay.
own stuff, so it just depends. So there's several different ways you can land media for people, and so
Hmm.
like sometimes you'll pitch a journalist and they'll say, "Hey, yeah, I really love like that piece of advice that they could give. I'll mention them in my upcoming article on like said topic." Right?
Okay.
Then there's ones where it's like, "Wow, that is such like an impactful and powerful story." So one of our clients, this is a story I've shared a few times, but it was just like I hate to say it because it's like a very sad story, but I knew it was going to be a success because you know what the media look for? They look for things that are like gonna trigger emotion and like
Mm-hmm.
get clicks. And so
Yeah.
he was referred by like a friend and client. So his name's George. His dad passed away at the start of the pandemic. I think he's George's 19 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And his dad was the sole provider for his family, right? And so their whole business, like his dad's business was pretty much, couldn't operate because he passed away, and the
Mm-hmm.
business had debt. And so like George was in like a really tough spot. And so he ended up starting this, female, it's like these mirrors, they have like the selfie ring lights in them. Anyway, he ended up doing like 100 grand in sales in like 60 or 90 days. And, from there, he like started providing for his family. And like within 12 months, he like bought his sister, like didn't buy his sister a house, but like helped her with the deposit to buy a house. And so, it's just one of those like triumph over adversity stories. And I was like, I know a journalist will run with this. And so we got him into the Daily Mail, which is one of the biggest publications here. And like the next day, like, because obviously they link it back to the website and stuff, he had a massive increase in traffic because it was just like, where everyone kind of reads. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I think like to go back to what you said, that there's multiple ways, but it's either one, the journalist writing, or we'll pitch them on an idea and they'll say, hey, can you guys create the content? So our whole service is done for them. So our clients, they don't have to do anything besides obviously the podcast interviews, because we can't send a clone in for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's cool. And I think that's a neat perspective on, the way to get out there. And because sometimes you think like, will it really do much to be in any of these big publications? Because I feel like I see a lot of people like, I'm in Forbes, I'm in Entrepreneur Magazine, like the traffic it actually sends, but it sounds like it actually has a positive direction once you get in there. People do read those, and as long as you have kind of your funnel set up right, the benefit would be there.
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And look, some people can get like a huge, uptick in traffic and conversions right away, but that's not the case 100% of the time, for sure, right? Like, but if you look at anyone at the highest levels, they have all that stuff. And so it just kind of builds that social proof. And, this is one of the things I'm constantly asking people about. It's like, how can we track the ROI better, right? You can look at clicks and all that stuff, but it's like over time, when people search your name up and they see all this great stuff about you, that could be the deciding point between them working with you and the next person who does the same thing, because they read a really cool story about you. You shared some personal things in there and like, wow, that really resonated. I'm going to work with Chris, right?
Yeah.
I loved your story. So yeah, I think it's one of those like 1%ers. Like when I used to play football, my coach would always say, just worry about the 1%ers, right? So like it's part of the foundation of building the business and the brand, and just having omnipresence, being everywhere will really, you can't put a number on it or an exact percentage, but it helps.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's what we talk about when we talk to, potential clients and things of that nature, like having a video podcast, like you mentioned earlier, the video content, increases that trust factor with individuals because they can see you and hear you. But like having your own show and getting out there and putting content out there through that consistently, like that elevates you in the eyes of those potential clients too, in your audience, because like now they hear you talking and they're trusting you more and more. And so you become that expert in whatever your show is talking about. And then when you partner with, PR, getting in these publications, getting on the news or things of that nature, like that's just another level, another kind of layer of, expertise that you now show. And then, the whole, conversation about authoring a book and things like that. Like we have to now, because so many people are out here doing it in the spaces, you have to set yourself apart and you have to show that expertise and show people like, I'm not someone just sitting in my mom's basement, like just winging it or just, making everything up, like faking it kind of thing. Like, I think that's a huge huge thing is to build that trust and that expertise view for the audience in multiple streams, like you said, omnipresence everywhere. So with that, can people do it on their own? I'm sure they can. It's probably obviously working with you to get published is going to be a lot simpler. But maybe you say they don't have the means to invest yet with you guys. What would some tips you give be for them trying to get published in these things on their own?
Build relationships. So before you ever ask for anything, just build relationships. So like a really simple process anyone can follow is, one, find a publication that, ideally you'd want to be in, something that's relevant to your audience and, your expertise. Then I would find the journalists that are writing topics, writing about subjects that are, relevant to you. Then I would just give them a follow on LinkedIn, Twitter. That's where most journalists, hang out and post content. I would just start sharing some of their content, not like sharing every article they post on every day because that's a bit stalkerish.
Yeah.
But just sharing an article like once a week and, putting a comment on there saying like, great piece from XYZ, author, journalist, contributor. Then, I would just send them a personalized message that says, hey, name, really enjoying your content, appreciate your work. Don't ask for anything and just keep adding value. And then, in a month's time, you might say, hey, Sarah, been following along your content for a while. Just wanted to let you know that I've got a really, cool idea that I think your audience would benefit from. If you're interested in learning more, let's just have like a quick chat. And so, yeah, I just think the most successful way for anything is to go relationship first, and especially in the media, because they get pitched hundreds of times a week, if not a day. Yeah. And so if you don't make it personal, they're just going to ignore you.
For sure. No, I think that's a great tips right there. Now, for those who are curious, if you're going that route, trying to get recognized and in publications on your own, do those publications charge still, or is it kind of, if they think it's a good story, they're just going to do it because it's going to help them in their position job wise?
Yeah, I don't know the exact percentage, but most of them you'll be done organically, like no fee, but some do have a fee, right? Okay. Some of them will offer you different partner brand content. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but it's like anything as well, it's a numbers game. Like if you reach out to 10 publications, chances are you're probably going to get, something, maybe not. Like I have this client who I don't know how it doesn't work. Like, to be honest, like I say client, but he's more of a friend. And so anyway, he's a young guy. He's got 4.5 million followers on TikTok, got connected by one of my other friends who's got a massive following on TikTok. He doesn't make a ton of money from it yet.
Yeah.
But I was like, look, man, I'll help you out for free. We came up with like this really, really good pitch. Like, and it was crazy. Like, I think we said it's like 10 journalists. He actually got a response from a lady at Inc. And she's like, if this was 2 weeks earlier, I would have been perfect. It was just bad timing. So you got to be timely. That's the important thing. If it's a story that's, months, weeks old, not relevant, they won't do it. But even for this guy with a huge brand, like it's been a struggle for him to do it himself, right? Like even with the strategy. So yeah, it can be a hard thing to crack, right?
Yeah.
So doing it on your own. But that being said, there's clients who I've been shocked and they're like, yeah, like, got reached out to by, Forbes or someone. So it's cool.
That is cool. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of possibility out there. And, but like what you said, building the relationships regardless, I think it's just crucial to be able to do that in business for any means, for any path. And, it's most rewarding too, because you're not just trying to take, you're giving more, which, it just overall is better in the long run for that.
100%.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So what's Boost got coming up? Anything big plans with the business or eyeing anything, or just, nose down to the grindstone, keep going?
Yeah, pretty much just keeping going with what we're doing, just adding some new acquisition channels in. So pretty much all of our client acquisition has come through cold outreach. So we've got a couple of paid traffic sources that we're about to implement: Facebook, Instagram, potentially YouTube as well.
Nice.
The ads were meant to be launched a few weeks ago, but I was actually on vacation in Europe, so I was a little bit slow to get the agency everything they needed to run the ads. But everything should be launched by next week. So yeah, just really focusing on getting our clients good results, acquiring new acquisition channels, and then continuing to scale.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Well, Keep up the great work with it. I'm curious now, this is kind of more of a personal question, just kind of round things off. Where's your favorite golf course? Do you have a favorite golf course that you like playing?
It's funny you say that. So probably my favorite golf course it's a golf course called Cottonwood Hills. It's in Hutchinson, Kansas. I don't think it's still open.
Oh.
So like we were talking about before this, like when I went to school in Kansas, so they have a course called Prairie Dunes Country Club, which was the 27th best golf course in the whole world when I was there. I think it's like 50 something now. Okay. It dropped in the rankings a little bit, but still great. But then there was this course. So Nick Faldo, I'm not sure if you've heard of him, one of the most famous golfers that's probably ever played the game. He still commentates for the golf, but he designed this course that was, somewhere off in the prairies, and it was shut down because it wasn't making any money. And they literally reopened it in my second year of college. And man, it was like no golf course I have ever played before. It was crazy. The first time I played it, I literally thought it was impossible because you can't see any of the fairways. Like on the tee, all you can literally see is just wispy grass because there's like these rises, and then there's like I said, like nothing I'd ever seen. And it was an incredibly hard golf course, but I don't want to say I mastered the course, but like I figured out how to play it, and no one could beat me there. Like, because we'd always have our team qualifying, and like I would say 9 times out of 10, I had the lowest score because I knew how to play the course, and I played it smart, and everyone else, I would love to go back and play that course.
That's awesome. That's cool. And what's your strongest suit in golf? Is it driving? Is it your short game?
Depends what day. One day it's putting, one day it's driving, one day it's irons. It's rare when everything works really well in golf. Like no matter what level, it's very rare when everything's just like perfect. There'll be the putting's off today, but the driving was good.
And it's funny.
If you putt good, it's the saving grace if you can putt really good.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because like you watch all the golfers on the Masters and things like that, the competitions, and like even their bad days, in my opinion, just because I'm not that good, I'm like, shoot, I wish that was my good day. So, is there any golfer that you would love to meet, or have you met any famous golfers? Or
I mean, I met the guy I'd like to meet again, Cameron Smith. Aussie guy, he's number 2 in the world. I did meet him, but it was like we were playing against each other at interstate golf back in 2010. He was a freak then.
I was gonna say, did you just play and you're like, oh my gosh, that guy's gonna be freaking good?
So we didn't. So he was so I live in Queensland now, but I grew up in a different state. He was playing for Queensland. I was playing for ACT. And so when we were playing, we both happened to be like resting. So like our teams played, but we didn't actually match each other. But like we're on the first tee chatting, and like you exchange badges for the state. And so like he gave me his, I gave him mine. So like it'd be cool to meet him again. Tiger Woods, I think, would be cool, of course. But
that's awesome. Cool. Well, Lewis, man, it's been a good conversation. I've really appreciated everything you shared. I think the audience can take a lot away from this conversation just to build their brand even more and kind of get out there and get seen. So I appreciate you taking time and sharing today.
Likewise, Chris. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. We'll probably have you back on in the future, I hope. Schedules align. A lot of good information. So everybody, make sure you get connected with Lewis at Lewis Schenk on Instagram, right? I got that right?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Yeah, get connected with him, see what he's doing, learn from him. And if you're ready for publications, getting out there, reach out, get started. And again, got to elevate yourself, got to get out there, got to be seen on video and in publications. So start taking the steps, even if they're baby ones, to get that process rolling. And but again, Lewis, thanks again, and everybody else, until next time. And thanks so much for tuning into this episode today. If you found value at all from this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It just helps us get this show, these messages out in front of more people. And don't forget to share this with someone who you think could benefit from listening to as well.